to another channel, and today I'm joined with my sister. Say hi.
Hi.
And today we got a real crazy case for you. So today we're going to be talking about the SLENDERMAN stabbing case. So let's get on to this story. So Peyton Leutner was a 12-year-old girl who was born on February 13th in 2002 in Wisconsin.
How was Peyton's life?
So Peyton was a very happy girl. She led a typical life with a happy family, and she went to school.
So did she have any friends?
So Peyton did have two friends. She had Morgan and Anissa, but before she met Anissa, she was best friends with Morgan.
So how was Morgan's upbringing?
Morgan had a very rough upbringing. Her father struggled with schizophrenia, so he was often hospitalized, leaving her mom to be very busy, which meant she was spent a lot of time alone with herself. Morgan often liked to entertain herself by going onto the internet and watching scary things, and looking up scary stories, images, anything that was scary.
Did Morgan have a lot of friends?
Morgan did not have any friends until she met Peyton. Peyton noticed that Morgan was alone, and Peyton, being the nice girl she was, she decided to befriend Morgan. Eventually, later down the line, a girl named Anissa joined their friend group. These three girls were inseparable. In this trio, Anissa and Morgan ended up growing really close, closer than Morgan was ever with Peyton.
What do they have in common?
They bonded over their love for the macabre and creepy. As Morgan and Anissa would scroll through their internet, they would go through a lot of urban legends, coming across one very popular one that I'm sure all of you know, Slenderman. I will now read you some interesting lore about Slenderman and where he came from. Slenderman is an urban legend created by Eric Kundensen. He is a tall creature that is white that wears a suit with long tentacles. His urban legend is that he abducts and kills children, so he hangs around parks and woods. He can also give his victims slender sickness when you're near him, which gives you severe paranoia, nightmare. It drives you insane and turns you into his minion. I just want to preface that Slenderman is not a real creature. He is made up. This image was used in a Photoshop contest that Eric entered. This challenge was to create a paranormal image. The Slenderman urban legend inspired movies, games, and internet stories. Slenderman was basically a pop culture icon. Anissa and Morgan were obsessed with the story of Slenderman. They would often tell it to Peyton to scare her.
How did Peyton react to Slenderman stories?
Peyton was absolutely terrified of the Slenderman stories. She would often go to her mom scared out of her mind, and her mom would have to prove to her that this creature is not real. A fact is, Morgan fully believed that Slenderman was a real creature. So on May 30th, Morgan was having a sleepover with Anissa and Peyton to celebrate her birthday. So as the next day rolled around, they ate their donuts and they decided they wanted to go to a park, David Park. So Morgan's mom decides to drive them, and as she drops them off, they decide to play a very popular game, hide and seek.
So how did the game start?
So Morgan decides to go count, and Anissa and Peyton go hide in the woods. So Anissa has a great idea. She's like, Peyton, lay on the ground and I'll cover you with these leaves. So that's what they do. And Peyton is under these leaves. She can't see anything, and all she hears is footsteps running away from her, assuming it was Anissa running.
So what happened next?
So as Peyton is laying under the leaves, she notices that Morgan stops counting, and she starts to hear footsteps all around her. And then she gets pounced on by an unknown person. So the person holding Peyton down was Anissa. She tries to get up, and then she sees Morgan pull out something from her backpack as she's being surprise attacked. So Morgan jumps on her too and pulls out a knife. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So as she's pulling out this knife, she's going, I'm so sorry. And then she stabs her 19 times. As Morgan's stabbing, Anissa is holding her down. And she's not just stabbing her in her stomach, she's stabbing her in her arms, legs, anywhere that can be stabbed. It was horribly brutal. So after this ordeal, Anissa and Morgan panic and they run away, saying they're gonna get help, but later they said they didn't mean it. So instead of Peyton just lying on the ground for her friends to go get help, she decided to be the bravest person ever. She got up, is going through these woods, grabbing onto trees as she's bleeding everywhere, and she sees this opening with a path, and she collapses as a cyclist is riding his bike right over there. She calls for help. She's collapsed on the ground. She can't move. She's used all of her energy trying to get out of the woods. The cyclist calls up an ambulance, and she's rushed to the hospital.
How bad were her wounds?
Out of the 19, 2 of them were severe. Most of them just hit the skin and muscle, but the 2 that were severe were almost life-threatening. One of them almost killed her because it grazed her aorta. If it was only a hair strand closer, she would have died. Thankfully, she lived. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Morgan and Anissa did get caught in the hour of the crime. They were found 5 minutes away from the scene. Morgan and Anissa were both arrested, and as soon as they got caught, they confessed. The girls said the reason they were trying to kill Peyton was to sacrifice her to Slenderman. They wanted to become his like little minions, and to do that, they needed to sacrifice her. Or Slenderman would have killed them, but Slenderman's not real, so it couldn't have happened. They actually wanted to prove themselves worthy to Slenderman, so that is another reason why they decided to kill Peyton. They did intend on killing Peyton the night of the sleepover in the house by slitting her throat, but it would be too messy and they couldn't hide the body, so they decided, let's do it the next day where we can just leave her in the woods, which is horrible, right?
That is really horrible. So who led the attack?
So Morgan actually led the attack and had planned it. She also was found on her Google that she Googled how to get away with murder, and she also had a bunch of disturbing drawings in her school locker, which I will show right here. Alright guys, that comes to the conclusion of this case. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Also consider subscribing to my little sister's channel, Live and Like Live. Alright, thanks for watching.